Alright, how's it going everybody? My name is StevieWunderKid, and in front of me here I have a Maibatsu Penumbra FF modified to resemble Roman Pearce's 2003 Mitsubishi Eclipse Spyder GTS that appeared in the Too Fast, 2 Furious movie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys all the parts you're going to need to apply in Los Santos Customs to create an accurate replica of his car. So before I start the video, I want to keep in mind one major thing about this is that the Maibatsu Penumbra FF is based off of a second generation Eclipse. Obviously, as you guys may know, if you've seen Too Fast, 2 Furious, Roman Pearce's Eclipse is a third generation, and it also is a convertible. However, I decided it would be a good idea to do this build because Rockstar actually gave us a livery for this car called We Hungry, which is a direct reference to a line that Roman had in the film.
Hey man, you got something to eat up in there? We hungry.
So I thought it was fitting that we do a build on this car, and given that we have the livery for it, I feel like it was a good idea. So I'm going to go into Los Santos Customs and we're going to give you a detailed rundown of the parts you're going to need to create an accurate replica. Alright, so now that I'm pulling into Los Santos Customs, I figured I'd mention this before the video begins, which is that, obviously, again, this car is based off of a second generation Eclipse, therefore, not all the parts that we use for this build are going to be a direct matchup to Roman's car. So just keep that in mind. This isn't going to be a perfect replica, but it's going to be as close as I can get it. Alright, so obviously we skip over the performance mods, let's move into the bumpers. For the front bumper, I chose the street bumper. Now the reason why is because it has kind of this low slung cut for the grille. Obviously you guys can see the center portion here is kind of it's like a thin cut, but I believe it's wide enough, which I think really matches up well with the front bumper on Roman's car. In addition to that, it has kind of these side cutouts too, which I think are pretty accurate to the kind of interesting looking bumper that's on the front of those Eclipse GTSs. The only other bumper that I think would be a good match is the racing bumper, because the racing bumper has like that little indented portion at the center of the grille, but I think the vents on the sides are a little bit too big, which is why I decided against it. But either the racing bumper or the street bumper are your two best matches, I feel. Moving on to the rear bumper, again, we have a couple different options for this one, but I chose to do the ribbed race rear bumper. The reason why is because there's these little extensions on the left and right hand sides of the skirts that I think are pretty accurate to his car. In addition to that, there's a little center portion that hangs below the license plate, which I think fills up some of the empty space below the license plate. So you can run this bumper. Obviously, I chose the ribbed bumper because I think it matches best with the body lines on the Eclipse that he had. The only other option I think you guys could use for this is the ribbed street rear bumper. This is pretty much the same thing in terms of the extensions on the left and the right. However, there's a lot of empty space in the center, and there's kind of nothing below the license plate, which is why I decided to go with the ribbed race rear bumper. Alright, moving on to the exhaust. Again, we have two choices for this. I chose the single small exhaust. As you can see on Rome's car, he has a pretty long chrome tip that's sticking out of the back of the car. You could also use the titanium tip exhaust if you want to fill some of that empty space in the back bumper a little bit better. I don't think it looks very good, especially with this bumper, because I think it's a little bit too close to the right hand side of where it sticks out. It's not centered very well, which is why I just chose the single small exhaust. It's a bit smaller, I think it fits a little bit better, and it doesn't look that bad when you're driving either. So if you guys want to choose this exhaust, you can. You could also go with the titanium tipped exhaust if you really want to. Moving on to the front seats, there's again two options that I feel are the most accurate for this: the street seats and the racing seats. I feel like these two are the best bets you're going to get. Obviously, again, in Roman's car you have these generic looking bucket seats. I really can't tell what the brand is, but we can get the color right, but we can't get the actual seat itself right. So because the seat that he used in his car is slightly different than anything we can get in GTA, I think the best match is either the street seats or the racing seats. Moving on to the hood, we went with the stock hood. Really, you could run anything as long as it doesn't have the vents or isn't carbon, so you could run the street hood or the sport hood if you wanted to. No other hood I feel like is going to be as accurate, but for the purposes of cost, just kept it stock. Moving on to the lights, we kept the headlights stock, but as for the neons, we went with a neon layout for front, back, and sides, and then the neon color is blue. Now there's again a couple colors that would work. There's no direct match that you can make in GTA, but I chose blue. I think the neons in the pictures that I saw looked a little bit more blue than anything else, and also the blue in GTA has a slight purple tinge to it, which I think is pretty nice. You could also use electric blue, however I feel like this is a little bit too bright. The only other two colors that I think would work for this are the black light and the purple lights. I feel like the purple is a little bit too purple for this build. The neons on Roman's car I think were a little bit more blue than they were purple. So purple, black light, or again blue or electric blue if you wanted to. I think blue is probably the best match you're going to get here. Alright, so moving on to the livery. Obviously, this is the signature aspect of the build. You're going to want to use the We Hungry livery. It's obviously very reminiscent of Roman's car because it has this weird kind of square geometric pattern that kind of extends on the hood and then obviously back to the doors and the side of the car. And you also have these stripes kind of cutting into the doors as well. So yeah, for this build, I mean, you kind of have to. Same thing with Paul's Eclipse from Fast and Furious 1. You kind of have to run the We Hungry livery. It's a direct reference to Roman's line, and it's obviously the closest that you can get to his car. Moving on to the mirrors, I just kept them stock. If you look at the mirrors on Roman's car, they also are just body color, so I just kept them stock. As for the respray, this is where it gets a little bit technical because we are going to use a metallic paint with a pearlescent here. The base color that I used was a shafter purple, so I'm going to buy it again just so I could show you guys exactly what I used here. But again, shafter purple, it is metallic paint, so metallic shafter purple on both the primary and the secondary. And then for the pearlescent, I used an ice white, but I feel like that's a little bit too bright and it really kind of takes away from the purple. So I ended up using a silver pearlescent. Now, the reason why I kind of like this color is because it keeps somewhat of that purple in it. It looks a little bit more bluish than anything, but if you look at the color on Roman's car is like this kind of faded out lavender color, which is unfortunately in GTA this is kind of the closest that we can get to that. So silver pearlescent is probably your best match. If you think that this purple is a little bit too dark, another option that I think you guys could use is the bright purple. The bright purple, in my opinion, even when you do the silver or the white pearlescent, is a little bit too bright. Obviously, hence the name bright purple. But yeah, this is another option that you could use if you want to. If you choose either the bright purple or the shafter purple, you're going to want to do the pearlescent. Either silver or the two shades of white, the ice white or the frost white, would work really well because you're able to kind of lighten that color and give it the faded out look that appears on Roman's car. But again, there's no perfect match that we can get here without using your crew color, which is why I just went with a color that was already available in the game. Not a perfect match, but as close as I think we can get it. Moving on to the trim color, we chose to do the ice white. The ice white, the reason why we did this trim color, I know it doesn't really fit the surrounds for the gauges that well, but it does color the seats exactly how I'd want them to. Obviously, Roman's car, his interior is all white, but unfortunately we don't have that option here in GTA to color the entire interior, but we can color the seats the way we want to. And if you upgrade the seats, like I said before, either using the street or the racing seats, then you can do the ice white trim color, and it will color the entire seat here. So I chose ice white. You could also do frost white. I think that's a little bit too mellow of a white. I think the ice white is the brightest white you can get, which is I think the closest match. Moving on to the roof, we kept it stock. Obviously Roman's car is a convertible, and even when the top's up there wouldn't be anything on the roof anyway, so we just keep it stock. As for the skirts, I also kept the skirts stock. On Roman's car, there's kind of like this weird little indicator thingy that's cut into the side, but unfortunately you really can't get that here in GTA, so I just kept it stock. Moving on to the splitter, we kept the splitter stock as well. Any splitter is obviously going to make the front end a little bit too big, and we chose the bumper for a reason, so for that we just keep the splitter stock as well. Moving on to the spoiler, this is actually the exact same spoiler we ran on the Fast and Furious 1 Eclipse. We just used the carbon extended wing. You could also use the extended wing if you want to. I feel like these are the two best matches because you have the little carbon fins on the left and right hand sides and the aluminum supports here. So the extended wing or the carbon extended wing could work just fine. I chose the carbon extended wing because I had this on from the last build. Moving on to the sun strips, Roman's car doesn't have a sun strip, so we just kept this stock. Alright, so moving into the suspension, we kept the suspension stock. If you look at pictures of Roman's car, it's actually really high off the ground. I'm not a super huge fan of the wheel fitment, but for the sake of accuracy, I just kept the suspension stock. Alright, so as for the wheels was probably the easiest decision to make on this car, surprisingly enough. Normally it's hard to find wheels that match, but these wheels match the best. So the wheel type is sports, and these are chrome rims, so you might have to pay up if you don't have these unlocked for free. And we use the Feroci RR rims. I feel like these are the most accurate because of the way the spokes look themselves. The pattern that you guys see on the wheels is almost identical to the wheels that were on Roman's car. The only other match that I think you guys can make is the chrono wheels. I chose not to do these because I feel like the spokes themselves are a little bit more angular, and I just don't like the look of these rims. I think just the spokes themselves, they just don't look all that good in my opinion. I think they're way too thick, and if you look at the Feroci Rs, the pattern on the wheels themselves match up so much better with the wheels that are on Roman's car, which is why I would choose these wheels. The wheel color, obviously since the wheels are chrome, we don't have to change the color, and the tires, we also just keep those stock. And then lastly, the window tint, I just put these to light smoke. You can really do whatever tint you want here because you rarely ever see Roman's car with the top up, so I just kept this stock. And that's pretty much it. That is the build. This was a bit of a more detailed one because I wanted to make sure I kind of detailed every aspect of this one, because it was a bit of a stretch for some parts, I know. But I feel like this is the most accurate build, so we're going to go back to the arena workshop and take a little bit more of a in-depth look at this car. Alright, so we're back in the arena workshop, and here you could see the car completed in its modified state. Again, as I said, we can't get the best match for every single part, but I think it matches up pretty well. The wheels, I think, and the suspension height, I think, are the main two things that kind of make this build semi-close match. Again, the rear bumper and the front bumper were a bit of a stretch, but I think we got as accurate as we could. The paint color as well, again, there's no perfect match unless you guys try to use a crew color for that, but I think that using the shafter purple as we did with the silver pearlescent, I think is a pretty good match that gives us somewhat of that kind of faded out lavender look to it. Obviously, again, as you guys can see, the interior, we've got the white seats. That's as close as we can get. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. Obviously, again, everything was a bit of a stretch, but I think that the parts that we chose were the most accurate. And I obviously gave you guys some more options to work with if you feel like there's a better match too. Really glad that Rockstar added this, but again, I feel like they just slightly missed the mark a little bit by putting this livery on this car. I felt kind of obligated to do this build because they gave us the livery to do it, but at the end of the day, man, I just don't know why they would put this on this car, but we did what we could, and that is the build. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and are enjoying the new update. Expect more videos like these. I love doing these replica builds and kind of showing you guys this because I really love doing the research that's involved with these builds. I love films in general and being able to recreate some iconic cars. Obviously, if Rockstar gives us the tools to do it, then I love doing it, and I absolutely love doing these videos for you guys. So with that being said, I hope you all have a great day, enjoy the update, and I will talk to you in the next one.